Hey everybody, and welcome to another edition of Double D Card Talks. I'm Dustin A here, and today we're going to be talking about the 9 players and the 1 head of the MLBPA that are up for Hall of Fame election by the Modern Baseball Eras Committee, which will vote on December 10th on whether or not these players get into the Hall of Fame. So without further ado, let's dig into the players. Up first, I have Ted Simmons. He played from 1968 through 1988 for the Cardinals, Brewers, and Braves, primarily as a catcher. He was also an 8-time All-Star. If you compare his stats to other catchers in the Hall of Fame, his numbers are definitely going to stand up or stand out. He has more runs scored than Piazza and Gary Carter. He has more hits than Piazza, Carter, Fisk, Johnny Bench, and Yogi Berra. He has more doubles than Piazza, Carter, Fisk, Bench, and Berra. He has more RBIs than Piazza, Carter, Fisk, Bench, and Ivan Rodriguez. He has a higher career batting average than Carter, Fisk, and Johnny Bench. He has a higher on-base percentage than Carter, Fisk, Johnny Bench, and Ivan Rodriguez. So, I mean, to me, those numbers speak for themselves. He also ranks 8th all-time in the number of shutouts caught among catchers. Among catchers, he's 2nd career in hits, doubles, and RBIs, 10th in home runs, and 6th in runs scored. His one, maybe you might call downfall, was he was just average as far as a defensive catcher. He was just average. But with all that said, I'm going to say I would definitely vote for him for the Hall of Fame, and I think that the Eras Committee is going to agree with me, and I think they're going to vote him in. Boom.
Our next candidate up for consideration is Louie Tiant. During Louie Tiant's 19-year career, he was selected to the All-Star Game 3 times. He was an ERA champion in 1968 and also again in 1972. Despite some excellent seasons during his career, Tiant's career record is also spotted with a number of very poor seasons, including a 1969 campaign where he went 9-20. While his career numbers are comparable with what deserves consideration for the Hall of Fame, they don't measure up to what normally gets you elected into the Hall of Fame, unfortunately for him. Of the 10 starting pitcher contemporaries for Tiant from his same playing days, 9 of those in the Hall of Fame have better wins than him. That includes Steve Carlton, Gaylord Perry, Tom Seaver, Don Sutton, and Nolan Ryan. The only Hall of Famer from his contemporary time period that he has more wins than would be Jim Catfish Hunter. And unfortunately, I just don't think that his career resume stands up for induction. And so I would be a no vote, and I don't believe that the committee is going to induct him either. So we're going to go with no on Louie Tiant.
Up next, we have Mr. Jack Morris, who was a right-handed pitcher who pitched from 1977 to 1994 for the Detroit Tigers, Minnesota Twins, Toronto Blue Jays, and Cleveland Indians. Jack was a 5-time All-Star. He has 3 World Series rings, each of them with a different team, and he also was the 1991 World Series MVP. He pitched what many believe to be the greatest pitching performance in World Series history. Game 7 of the 91 World Series, he pitched a 10-inning, 1-0 shutout. You have to remember that Don Larsen's perfect game was a Game 5, and although there were some other Game 7 shutouts, his is the only one that was a 10-inning shutout. So what are his Hall of Fame credentials? Well, he has a higher winning percentage than Jim Bunning, Gaylord Perry, Bert Blyleven, Phil Niekro, and Don Sutton, and he has more World Series rings than all of those pitchers combined. He has the most wins of any pitcher in the decade of the 1980s. However, I just don't think it's enough. I hate to say it, being that he's a Minnesota boy and I'm a Minnesota boy, but I don't really think he deserves to be in the Hall of Fame based upon one game. Now, granted, he was a great pitcher throughout his career, but great and Hall of Fame great aren't the same thing. So I would vote no. However, I think that the era committee will vote yes. And the reason why I say that is if you look at his look at the ballot from his 15 years on it, and the Baseball Writers Association, the last 3 years of eligibility, they voted more than 60% yes. And when that happens, more than likely, that person's going to be a shoo-in for a Veterans Committee to vote in. So that's my opinion on that.
Our next candidate up for consideration is Detroit Tigers shortstop Alan Trammell, who spent 20 years with the club. He was a 6-time All-Star, won 4 Gold Gloves, and was the 1984 World Series MVP. I'll also add that I think he possibly should have been the 1987 AL MVP as well. Regrettably, though, he did fall just short of that and finish second to George Bell. Trammell's offensive numbers compare very favorably to many other contemporaries within the Hall of Fame, including fellow middle infielders Barry Larkin and Roberto Alomar. He favors comparably to all-around numbers to Derek Jeter as well. Regrettably, his career numbers are cut short due to injury troubles that he suffered throughout his career. However, Trammell's numbers, as more advanced statistical comparisons and sabermetrics have come into vogue, his value has grown more appreciated, and I think that is going to help him in the vote, and I think this is a good opportunity that he will be selected. I think it's going to be very close, but I think Trammell is going to get the nod and make the cut, and I would vote for him as well.
What about Donnie Baseball, the Hitman, Mr. Don Mattingly, the Yankees first baseman from 1982 to 1995? He was a 6-time All-Star. He won 3 Silver Slugger Awards, 9 Golden Glove Awards, and a league MVP. He also had a record for homering in 8 consecutive games. Unfortunately, Don was born with a congenital disc deformity in his back, which eventually caught up to him and caused his offensive production to sharply decline. So it's not really fair to compare Don to other Hall of Fame first basemen, but I did find a Hall of Famer I could compare him to, and that is Mr. Kirby Puckett. They had very similar numbers. They both had to prematurely end their career due to medical reasons. Mattingly edged out Kirby in doubles, home runs, and RBIs, and Kirby edged out Mattingly in hits, runs scored, batting averages, and the other major offensive categories. But the major difference between them two was when Puckett had to retire, he was still pretty productive. He had some pretty good numbers, but Mattingly, he was declining. One thing that Mattingly has in his favor is his defensive ability. Only Keith Hernandez has won more Gold Gloves at first base, and Mattingly was very defensively dominant at first base, and due to his short amount of time where he was the most dominant player in baseball, and for his long amount of time that he was a very dominant defensive player, I'm going to have to say yes to Don. I hope he gets in. I think he deserves to get in, but I do not think that the Eras Committee will vote him in.
Known as Cobra during his playing days, Dave Parker was a fearsome and feared hitter, possessed one of the strongest outfield arms in the league during his playing days. He was a 2-time World Series champion, a 7-time All-Star. He won 2 batting titles, 3 Silver Sluggers, and 3 Gold Gloves. He was also named an All-Star Game MVP and a National League MVP. That certainly sounds like the resume of a future Hall of Famer, doesn't it? And, well, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. Dave Parker's career peak seasons from 1975 to 1979 were some of the greatest of any player during that era, and certainly rank as Hall of Fame worthy. Unfortunately, he suffered a considerable drop-off to his productivity offensively, defensively, and on the base paths during the 80s. Part of that maybe can be attributed to a cocaine problem. He was involved in the 1985 drug trials that occurred, which certainly tarnishes his Hall of Fame legacy, if not credentials. And unfortunately, when compared to right fielders of his time and era, he comes up a bit short among many of them. And so, unfortunately, I think he's a guy that's borderline, and I think is going to come up just short. I would probably be a no vote, and I think that's where the committee is going to land. But I think he has the potential to be a guy that might go either way.
Dale Murphy was a great player, but is he Hall of Fame great? He played from 1976 to 1993 for the Atlanta Braves, Philadelphia Phillies, and Colorado Rockies. He's a 7-time All-Star. He's bringing 5 Gold Gloves, 4 Silver Slugger awards, and he is a 2-time National League MVP. He brings to the table 5 or 6 years of pure dominance. His 398 home runs are ranked 58th all-time. He was a clean-cut, fan-friendly ambassador of the game. But a lot of guys are clean-cut, fan-friendly ambassadors of the game that don't belong in the Hall of Fame. He played most of his career for miserable teams. He has no postseason success. Now, that's not to say that you have to have postseason success to be in the Hall of Fame, but it sure helps. And so, with apologies to Festus Kyle, I know you're saying this. You're saying, if you're going to let Mattingly in, how can you not let Murphy in? But I'm saying no. I'm saying no, and I'm saying no, the Veterans Committee, Era Committee, whatever they're called, they're not going to let him in either.
Steve Garvey had a 19-year career in the major leagues, 14 of which were spent with the Los Angeles Dodgers. He was named to 10 All-Star games, and he won 4 Gold Gloves. He also was named a National League Championship Series MVP twice, and the National League MVP once in 1974. All of which seems like excellent credentials for a Hall of Fame candidate. But unfortunately, a lot of Steve's statistics and accomplishments don't hold up well to a deeper statistical analysis and an examination of more advanced statistical metrics. He certainly had a high batting average and recorded a lot of hits during his career. Unfortunately, his career statistics don't really measure up as well to Eddie Murray, Rod Carew, or Tony Perez, and other first base contemporaries that are Hall of Famers. He more closely compares to non-Hall of Famers such as Will Clark and Mark Grace, and unfortunately I don't think he is going to be inducted. I think he's probably going to be on the outside looking in on this vote.
Tommy John, you've all heard that name, even people not familiar with the player. He was the first baseball player to undergo UCL surgery, then The surgery is commonly named after him, the Tommy John surgery. He was a left-handed pitcher from 1963 to 1989, and he pitched for the Indians, the White Sox, Dodgers, Yankees, Angels, and Athletics. He is a four-time All-Star. He pitched in 3 World Series, does not have a championship ring. He has 288 career wins with a 3.34 ERA. He is 26th all-time in wins, 7th among left-handed pitchers. He is 26th in shutouts, 20th in innings pitched, 8th in career starts. Only Roger Clemens and Bobby Matthews have more wins and are not in the Hall of Fame. He has more wins than Blyleven, Robin Roberts, Fergie Jenkins, Jim Palmer, Bob Feller, and Bob Gibson, just to name a few. So, because of that, I'm voting him in. I say he deserves it. He had a long career. He was very successful during his career. He should be in. And I think the Eras Committee is going to agree with me.
The last candidate on our ballot to discuss is Marvin Miller, who was the head of the Major League Baseball Players Union from 1966 to 1982. In my opinion, his influence and impact on the game of baseball is greater than all of the other 9 candidates on this ballot combined, and he is simply the most deserving candidate on this ballot for induction into the Hall of Fame. Unfortunately, as his role as the head of the Players Union, he made lots of enemies, was extremely antagonistic, and was never very well liked even among some of the players that he helped represent, and ended up making very wealthy as a result. But unfortunately, I think the snub that has gone on with Marvin Miller will continue, and even though I believe he is the most deserving, I do not think the committee will induct him as well. Okay, Double D Card Talk fans, we hope you liked this episode. We went over the ballot for the Baseball Hall of Fame Modern Era Committee vote, and we're predicting as a team 4 inductions into the Hall of Fame on the December 10th announcement, being Jack Morris, Ted Simmons, Tommy John, and Alan Trammell. So 4 inductees. My gut tells me that's too high. They're not going to induct that many, but that's our prediction. We're gonna roll with it. Here's your chance to get in on the very first Double D Card Talks contest. We want you to make a response video. Give us your prediction for all 10 candidates. Up or down vote. If you want to tell us why you think they should be in or not, that's fine too. But that's not part of the contest. What counts in the scoring is if you correctly predict the result. So 10 candidates, up or down votes for all of them. If there's a tie, we're going to randomize one winner. The prize will be in the form of a gift card, amount and location to be determined, but very likely will be to somewhere where you can be getting some new card supplies. But we're looking forward to seeing your submissions, and we look forward to seeing what new Hall of Famers might be announced on December 10th. Thanks everyone. Talk to you later.